Hey folks, so today I wanted to do a kind of a video. I don't know how good it's going to be because once again I'm by myself, but I'm going to try to do a video today explaining how I make my box lids, my wood sliding box lids. So the first thing you got to do is get the stock shaped to where it's going to go. Right here, as you can see, I've kind of drawn out where I want the box lid to be. And all this is actually flat through here. It doesn't look it, but it is. It's much like the lock that I did in my last video. It's still pretty flat on top, but it's rounded on the edges to make the whole thing appear that it's rounded. And so, but this is flat up here. When you take your rasp and flatten all this, you want to take a flat piece of something and lay it up here and look for light coming in underneath. And wherever the light is shining, that's your low spots. So all the parts where the piece is hitting, that's the parts you want to take off until this is perfectly flat through here. And so you can also take a rusty piece of steel if you have that laying around the shop or whatever and rub it back and forth across here, and that'll tell you where you're high. Wherever the rust leaves behind on the stock, that's where you're high at. And so, but I've got this right where it needs to be. So to lay these box lids out, what I do is first off, when I cut the blank down, when I'm cutting the blank down, this piece that comes off the top of the comb right here, I save it. And I use it to make the box lid out of, so that way all the grain lines back up when I make the box lid. So that way, whenever it's done, all the grain is running the same way, and it looks like it's all still one piece, basically. And so you want it to blend as much as possible. With kit rifles, you don't get that. You'll just get what you get if you order a box lid to go with your rifle. And so sometimes you'll have a plain maple stock or walnut, whatever. And so if you get a plain maple, your box lid might have a lot of curl in it, or vice versa. Your lid might be plain and your stock might have a lot of curl, and it just doesn't look like the lid belongs with that rifle. And so doing it this way, all the grain lines back up with it, and it's beautiful when it's finished. And so, in fact, I prefer a wood sliding box over a patch box. The term patch box didn't come around until I believe the later part of the 1780s. And so that's when we started making the brass patch boxes here in America. And so, to me, I think the wood sliding box just looks so much better. It just blends in, it looks so good, and it serves the same exact function. And so, that being said, so this piece right here came off of the comb up here when I cut this off. And so, I've got it cut down to the dimensions it needs to be on the outside. Now all the wood on the right side of the line over here has to still be removed. The lids taper in width and thickness, much like when you're forging a barrel. The wrought iron scalp is tapering from one end to the other in width and thickness both, from the breech end to the muzzle. And so your box lids are kind of the same fashion. They're tapering in width, so they're widest back here, and they taper down, and they also taper in thickness down as well. And so the nose up here will be about an eighth inch thick or so when it's done. And so also tapering like that helps that whenever you go to remove it, all you have to do is pull the lid back about a ½ inch, and basically the whole lid is loose at that point, and you can just pull it right off. The only place it gets snug is like at the last ½ inch or so. So when you push it in, it gets a little snug, and then it snaps into a spring catch spring, or a latch spring down here at the bottom end of the butt plate. And so that way throughout the seasons, this will swell and retract throughout the seasons. If it swells, you won't be able to get it out. So that's why you need to make them like this and make them a little bit loose, a loose fit all the way to the last ½ inch, and then it gets snug at the very end and snaps in place. So that way you can get it out no matter what type of season it is. But you can see here how the curls are lining up with the curls underneath, and that's what we're looking for. So to lay this out for how long it needs to be, and also how wide it needs to be, I just go by eye, by how wide I want it to be. But to lay it out for length, I use the golden mean proportion again. The golden mean proportion is used on the entire build. So what I do is I go to the rise of the comb, where the highest point of the top of the comb is, right here. And then I measure from there to the outside corner of the butt plate up here. Once I have that measurement, then I can divide that by 1.618. And when I divide it by 1.618, this overall was 8.5 inches from here to here. And so when I divided that by 1.618, it gave me 5 1/4. And so anyway, so now I measured off of this 5 1/4, and that's perfect. And so that's what it's going to be. The golden mean proportion just makes everything look like it's flowing, makes everything more attractive to the eye. And so one of these days I'll do a video of why I named my business that. And I'll show you all on the entire stock where the golden mean is used. It's used everywhere. It's used 15 or 20 times just on making the lock itself. So anyway, so I will be back. I'm going to cut the excess of this wood off and then get it shaped roughly, and then we'll start cutting our dovetails in. So stay tuned. Alright, so I have it tapered down. You can see how it's tapering in width and thickness, both directions. And so we're sitting at about 9/16 back here at the tail, and then we're sitting at about 7/16 at the nose. And that's about what you want. And so the dovetail itself is only about 3/16 tall, if that. And so you can even make them an 1/8 inch thick tall. They don't have to be very tall at all. Just enough to catch. And so now I got to cut this portion of the wood out. So I'm going to cut straight down along this line and then cut the dovetail in here at the end. And so get that done, and then we can start dovetailing the sides. Okay, I have the top part cut off, and dovetail started. And so now I can draw lines down through the side here and start cutting my dovetails in down the sides. So once you have your lines drawn out on both sides, you can take a back saw and you can start cutting this down and cut it down about an 1/8 inch deep or so, maybe 3/16. And then you take a flat chisel and come in here, and you're trying to make this bottom side not a 45, but at least dovetailed, and get it started. And do that to both sides. Your dovetail should be just inside of this. And so the longest part of your dovetail, the widest part, will actually be inside of this part just a tiny bit. So that way when the box lid goes in, the top part is covering any of your chisel marks. It's covering any of the dovetail, and you'll never see them until you remove the lid out. So, but it doesn't take very much, maybe a 32nd of an inch inside of this. And so I'm going to take a back saw, I'm going to cut this down, and then I'm going to start putting a bevel on it. Okay, so I have my line cut in. As you can tell, it's about close to 3/16 of an inch deep. Now I'm going to take my flat chisel, and I'm going to start coming in like this and removing some wood. So I can already tell I'm going against the grain this way. So I'm going to have to come in from this way and cut the grain in this way. So just like that until I'm down where I need to be. Once we have both sides dovetailed, I've already dovetailed this bottom side. Once we have both sides dovetailed, then I will start putting it on the stock, and I'll trace out where the dovetails are on the stock, and I'll show you all how to do that. And then we'll start putting the dovetails in the stock itself. Alright, so now I've got the lid sitting where I want it to be on the stock. I've got it lined up pretty dang close to my existing dovetails that I already have cut into the butt plate here. And so now I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to trace the bottom side of that dovetail all the way down, and then I'm going to put a mark out here. And so need to put a mark right here, and come over here and do the same on this side. Let's see, get my phone focused here. Put a mark right there, and then I'm going to trace the bottom of this dovetail out as well, and that will tell me where the outside, where the widest parts of the dovetails are. And then I need to come in from those lines a little bit, so I'll show you all that. Okay, so now I have the dovetails traced out where it's going to go. And so next thing I have to do is, that was the outsides of the dovetail, so if I cut this line, my lid won't fit. I would have cut the lines too wide. So I'm going to come in a little bit on each side, about like that, and draw a line all the way down, and across here too. Inside the line about 1/8 of an inch or so, and then cut straight down and start hogging all that wood. Well, I don't start hogging it out yet, but I start taking all the wood out of the middle here, get the dovetails in, and then start fitting the lid. And once I have the lid fit, then I can hog all this out in the middle where the box is actually going to be. So anyway, I'm gonna get to doing that. Okay, so now I've got I got it started, and as you can see, there's blood, sweat, and tears on every job. I cut myself somewhere, I don't know where, but anyway, I left blood all over this thing, but I got most of the blood chiseled out. But I've got this part started, and of course here's my dovetails. So when I get this started, it'll only go that far. And so now I have to get chisels in here and start chiseling this out at a dovetail as well, around a 45-degree angle or so, and I have to chisel this out at a 45 as well, and so all within it. So we have our outside established, so that's where that's going, and so I'm going to take wood out of the inside at an angle all the way around, and keep working this in little by little until we get it fit. And if you have to, you can take a pencil and you can mark all over the dovetail on your lid and slide it in, and when you slide it in, it will leave pencil marks wherever it's hitting. And then just take a little bit off and then try it again, take a little bit off and try it again, because it is amazing how little wood it takes to make it fit. And so you can just take off a little bitty sliver somewhere and all of a sudden the lid will fit. And so it's very important to just do little bitty steps at a time until you get it to fit right. So anyway, so I'm going to go to chiseling these dovetails out here, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I got the dovetails cut, as you can see, and I did take a pencil and put it on the edge of my dovetails, so that way when I slide it in I can see where it's hitting. But I'm done taking wood off, so because it fits. So I put it in. You can tell it's loose all the way until the very end, and then it snugs up. Then you'll push and it latches into the butt plate, and now the whole thing is tight. But it's only at the last ½ inch or so is where it starts snugging up. Any more than that, that thing can swell and you won't get it out when it gets wet. So anyway, so now I'm going to start rounding this and coping it to kind of even match the contour of the lock. And to me, that's why a round face lock looks really good with a wood sliding box, because everything flows together. Even when you do your carvings, you kind of want to mimic your carvings anywhere you carve, so that way all the carvings kind of have the same style and the same approach, and so that way everything just flows. And so anyway, I'm going to start getting this rounded off, and it'll look really cool here in just a minute. Alright, so here it is. So I got it rasped down, rounded off, and then I scraped it down to its finish. And so, but you can see how the curls kind of line up with the curls of the stock, and that's what we're looking for. So that way everything flows. And so, and that pulls out. You can see my pencil marks where I'm still hitting, but that's fine because I'm not going to mess with it because everything fits. And so, but once again, you can see how loose it is when I'm putting it in, and then it gets snugger and snugger as I push it forward until it just fits. And that's what you want. So that way when you pop it out in the winter time, or if your stock got rained on, all you got to do is pop it back that much, and then the whole thing's loose and comes right out. So, but there you go. I hope this helped. And now I have to make the catch spring to put in this on the bottom side so it latches into the butt plate. And I am going to go ahead and make an end piece out of iron that goes on the end to protect the end of it. Some box lids had that, and some didn't. Some they would put brass. If it was brass mounted, they'd put a brass end on this, or if it's iron, they'll put an iron end on it. And 2 screws hold it in, and they're countersunk in, and then you file the screw heads off. so they blend into the material. And so if you put a brass one on, you can use brass screws. If it's iron, you just put regular screws in and file them off, and then you don't even hardly see them. And so I'll probably do that to this one just to protect it. And this is a fancier rifle, so it would have had that. Some of your not so fancy ones, a lot of them didn't even have it. It was just wood all the way out to the end with a spring on it down here. And so anyway, but I hope this video helped y'all. And if you got any questions, be sure to put it in the comments. And I've had several requests to do other videos and on making a screw, so I'll do a screw making video at some point with hand filed threads and some other things. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoy it. Have a good one. Bye bye.